A surprise flip happens in the transfer portal. What's it mean for the Oklahoma Sooners?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply over at Gametime. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. The show is at Locked On Sooners, and a surprise from the transfer portal. Even though the transfer portal window is closed, we still have guys kind of making decisions. Some things may not be official. Well, Jermayne Lole, the defensive tackle of Louisville most recently, and then also of Arizona State, who had committed to the Oklahoma Sooners not 8 days ago, now flipping to the Texas Longhorns. Josh, what does it mean for the Oklahoma Sooners? How big of a deal is it?
Well, the truth is, I don't think anybody knows how big of a deal it is or isn't for Oklahoma. At the surface level, Oklahoma lost a depth piece in Jermayne Lole. Who knows? They might have lost somebody that could have been an impact player for them. We really don't know. We'll, I guess, find out over the course of this next season. Felt like Lole was going to have a chance to help Oklahoma, but obviously sounds like Texas came in, sweetened the pot, and maybe he's got an opportunity to be more impactful at Texas. And, from an NFL draft standpoint, maybe put a better foot forward in that regard if he gets more snaps and is more impactful. But it's not just some insignificant thing for Oklahoma, because you look up and say, okay, well, Dominic Williams and Dejon Terry, the 1-2 on the depth chart, or you got Jaden Jackson or David Stone or whoever, or Grayson Halton's emerging. Oklahoma's in a good situation up front, but would have loved this situation if you could have kept Jermayne Lole around.
Yes, that's kind of where I fall on this as well. I like the room that they've got at defensive tackle. I liked it a little bit more with Jermayne Lole at defensive tackle as well. I think it's premature to say who would have been what, aside from maybe Dominic Williams starting as your nose tackle. Beyond that, I think everything was up for grabs. I get it. If there was a little bit more NIL incentive for him to go to Texas, I totally understand that too. That's just part of the game now. You're going to, at times, see these kind of things transpire. I think, him committing before Dominic Williams and that whole thing went down, obviously, I think that has an impact in Williams coming to Oklahoma. Now, had Williams decided to go elsewhere, maybe Lole stays. But, I mean, that certainly was going to impact the snap distribution for the nose tackle position. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why he could have gone to Texas. But ultimately, it just comes down to, hey, if NIL there's a bigger incentive, that's fine. That's going to happen sometimes. If the playing time incentive was there for him at Texas, it's going to happen. You're going to see a number of reasons why guys decide to flip commitments at a time. And I think the defensive tackle room is still really, really good. What it was 6 months ago looks a whole lot better today, even though you lost Jermayne Lole. Or I guess you didn't really lose him because you never really had him because he never really signed. But you're not counting on that defensive tackle piece for your defensive tackle rotation. I keep coming back to this stat, which I find intriguing, is that Dejon Terry was the only defensive tackle to play more than 100 snaps for you last year. Now, you added Dominic Williams, who played a ton of snaps over the last couple of years at TCU. So you do have a lot of experience on that front, but I would have liked to have a little bit more experience and a little bit more depth, especially considering in the college football playoff expansion era to 12 games. If you want to go on a deep college football playoff run, you're going to need depth and you're going to need to have some security as well. That being said, I do think they do have pretty good security. If you're telling me that Dominic Williams is your starting nose tackle, Dejon Terry is your number 2, and then Jaden Jackson is your number 3, I'm still feeling really, really good about that trio right there. And then, depending on what happens at defensive tackle, if it's Grayson Halton and then a mixture of Dominic Williams and Grayson Halton, or Jaden Jackson and David Stone at that 3 technique position, I'm still feeling pretty good. Obviously, you want to have as much competitive depth as you possibly can at every position. Sometimes you're gonna be loaded, kind of like you are at wide receiver, linebacker, things like that. But with a guy who's entering his last year of eligibility, he may not want to sit there and see this log jam. And that's not to say he doesn't want to compete, but if the path to playing time is a little bit cleaner or a little bit clearer going to Texas, it's completely understandable. But I do think that Oklahoma's defensive tackle group is still really, really good. And I think it's going to be huge for them. They're going to have an impactful season, but I would have liked to see Lole stick around.
And, winning the Dominic Williams recruitment obviously was gigantic, and winning it
Huge.
over Texas and LSU and Missouri, it only makes it more important. But you felt like you'd won this recruitment in Lole too, and you had until you hadn't at the end here. And the other part is, look, you can call it option B for Texas, and I think that very well could be the case. But it still stings losing one of these to Texas. You'd much rather have Lole in Norman than have him helping out the Longhorns and on the opposite side of the Red River come October. Again, for me, we're going to find out as the course of next season plays out. Lole's been he's been hampered by injuries throughout his career, so that was always going to be a concern. Could he stay healthy? Could he get through a season? But I think it could have helped Oklahoma. Now, is this, a big time loss? That remains to be seen. I'm not going to chalk it up as it's not a significant loss right here today. I just don't know how to feel about it at this moment. Need more information, which we'll find out next fall.
Yeah, hindsight's going to be 2020 on this. Once we see how the season transpires, how the defensive tackle room looks for Oklahoma, how Lole looks for Texas. But I think on the surface, I'm cool with it. It's whatever. I'm not going to get up in arms about this decommitment or this flip. It just is what it is. You had a bit of a logjam. You have good depth, which, how long has it been since we've talked about having good depth at defensive tackle? Well, the Oklahoma Sooners now have good depth at defensive tackle. So if there's a spot that you feel like you can afford to lose a guy, maybe that's the spot, because you still have Dominic Williams, Dejon Terry, Jaden Jackson, Grayson Halton, David Stone. You're feeling pretty salty about it moving forward. So I'm cool. It is what it is. Not going to, cry any tears over it. Even if it was an NIL move, hey, more power to them. Like, hey, make your money when you can make your money. It's all in the game now. NIL is part of the game. It's just part of the process. I'm not going to get mad if some other school can boast some kind of facility that Oklahoma may not have. That's just part of the deal, or developmental coach that Oklahoma may not have. That's not to say that many schools have stuff that Oklahoma doesn't have. That's just part. It's just a piece of the puzzle. Lole is now going to go to the Texas Longhorns, battle up Branson Hickman. That's going to be your responsibility to make that one look not as impactful come October. A big addition for the Oklahoma Sooners happened over the last couple of days. Trystan Haynes commits to the 2025 recruiting class. Let's discuss what the Carl Albert star means for the Sooners moving forward. Coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Get in on the action this postseason with Gametime. It's the place to get best last-minute ticket prices for the best venues across the country. Hey, you're watching game 2 of or Dallas Mavericks, Oklahoma City Thunder. We're recording as that one's going on right now, but there's a good chance that could go back to game 5 in Oklahoma City. Make sure you go to Gametime. Great deals right now. I'm seeing tickets as low as $87 through the Gametime app. But if you use promo code Locked On College, you can get $20 off that first purchase over at Gametime. I love the way that their app helps you see what your seat is going to be looking at from, whatever, upper deck, lower level, corner seat. You're going to get to see exactly what you're going to be looking at from your seat through the Gametime app. You can go to gametime.co on your browser as well to search for the best last-minute tickets as well. Concerts, theater, comedy shows, whatever it is you're looking for, Gametime's got it. So go download the Gametime app today in your app store or the Google Play Store and get the best tickets to the best action out there. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Trystan Haynes commits to the Oklahoma Sooners 2025 recruiting class. Another blue chip prospect for Jay Valai to tout, and the 2025 class moves up to number 4 in the 247 Sports team recruiting rankings in the composite for 2025, ahead of USC. But man, it's just continuing to come together for the Oklahoma Sooners, especially on that defensive side of the ball. Man, it's not been long since Brent Venables has been in Norman, but you can see the impact that he is having and his staff is having on defensive recruiting.
And really, Trystan Haynes, I know that he's projected as a defensive back at the next level, and that's where he's going to play at Oklahoma, more than likely, right? But really, he could play wide receiver too. I mean, you flip on the tape over there, he's a big time athlete, has been a track star on the relay side. He qualified for the state meet in 5A in Oklahoma as a sophomore in the long jump with jumps over 21 feet in the long jump. So, I mean, we're talking big time athlete with one Trystan Haynes. So I think about his frame, the 6'2" type of frame, and that ability to run and to jump and to really cover ground is exciting to think about, John.
Yeah, he is a playmaker in every sense of the word. You know, you flip on the huddle highlights and he can return kicks. And I really hope that they get him involved returning kicks, like with the football in his hands. Looks a lot like a Billy Bowman, picking off passes and going the other way with it. You know, they may not use him at wide receiver because they're pretty stacked at wide receiver, but I think if they can get him involved on punt returns, one, it gives you really, really good size on punt returns, and it gives you just a smooth, athletic, fast player to hopefully and potentially make a big impact in the return game, because you need to get a net positive out of your return game, and Trystan Haynes down the road could potentially be a part of that. You know, he's the second highest rated commit currently in Oklahoma's 2025 class, behind just Ryan Foje, according to 247 Sports, the number 119 prospect in the nation, number 12 cornerback, and number 3 in the state of Oklahoma. And I mean, they're looking pretty well loaded right now at cornerback. You know, they got the Cortland Guillory commitment, as well as Malik Hawkins, which probably means they might be done at corner because they're pretty well loaded over the last few cycles at the position. But it's all turning up pretty well right now for the Sooners, and they got to continue to move forward. You know, number 4 in the nation right now in team recruiting, but that doesn't even really consider the offensive line targets that they still are heavily invested in the recruitments of for this cycle.
Yeah, there's a lot left still to try and go track down over the course of the remainder of the spring into the summer months, which historically has been where Oklahoma's found a lot of its commitments under Brent Venables in this regime. So the fact that they've pocketed as many commitments as they already have, and have added one here with Trystan Haynes, is really exciting. I mean, look, the class isn't done. There's maybe as many as 10 that you could still add to the class, 8 to 10 that they could add. We'll see where it winds up, but they got 15 in the class right now. So that's pretty exciting. And obviously the defensive back, the collection of talent there. I just love the types of athletes that they're adding. When you think about Hawkins and Haynes right here, the staff across the board, you give it up to Jay Valai and really just Brent Venables and company, man. They've been recruiting their tails off, and this looks, I mean, do we say middle of the cycle here in the closing year, right? I mean, December, you're going to lock this thing up for the most part, unless there's a surprise or two, which usually December, this thing's pretty much done anymore. So we're just about halfway home in this calendar year to that. Oklahoma's already got 15 commitments and a bunch of blue chippers. So they've done an awesome job. It'll be fun to watch, you know, what they add across the board over the course of this summer.
Yeah. CJ Nixon, arguably the number 1 prospect in the state of Oklahoma, still trending toward Oklahoma, according to, latest projections, things like that. If they can land that one, that's a big time edge rusher out of Weatherford that moves the needle. And it's another 4-star prospect for the Sooners to get on board. But it's a group that I think is pretty underrated in a lot of places. We talked about offensive line. We got Ryan Foje in the boat. You got Owen Hollenbeck. They're trending in a pretty good direction for Anthony Ogamuru, the Elgin prospect. But also, I mean, I know things have kind of gone up and down with like a Michael Fasusi and a Ty Haywood. That those recruitments I think are going to last a while, and there's still going to be some ebb and flows in those 4 or 5-star recruiting battles for these offensive linemen, because offensive line is the defensive line of this recruiting cycle. And so everybody's going to be trying to, get their hands on these guys and get them into their program. Oklahoma, I think, is still in a pretty solid spot. They got to keep pushing, keep recruiting, but if they can land one of those 2 guys, I think it really, really cements their class. And you got to hit home runs in this cycle on the offensive line. But everywhere else is looking really strong. Obviously, you got the Kevin Sperry commitment. That one's going to continue to look really, really strong, especially as he goes to Denton Guyer. And I imagine he's going to have another really, really strong season before he gets to Norman next year. Running backs looking pretty good. You got the Torrey Blaylock commitment. Wide receiver obviously is looking really, really strong. And Desan Brame, tight end, if they can end up landing him, I think that gives them a nice blue chip prospect to continue to build the tight end room after Bauer Sharp's gone, and with Davin Mitchell, and then hopefully Desan Brame out of Nebraska. But defensive line's looking really good with Kamari Moore and Trent Wilson, Alexander Shield Knight. If they add CJ Nixon, that even adds to that group a little bit. Defensive back we talked about. Linebacker's going to be curious to see where they go, because there's not really any obvious answers at that position just yet. But I think, again, Brent Venables is going to put some things together that makes this all come together.
And if you don't totally clean up at backer in this class, then, well, you got the transfer portal where maybe Oklahoma, Danny Stutzman moving on, right? I mean, you're going to have an obvious role for somebody out there that would be pretty attractive to fill.
Yeah, 100%. And, again, Oklahoma is going to be pushing for guys like Jonah Williams, the 5-star prospect as well. And Cole Breiler, nice little defensive line prospect out of the Hun School up in New Jersey. I don't know if you follow us on Twitter, you saw us retweet the workout video for this dude. And there's no way a defensive lineman should move the way that he moves. He's just quick, fast, agile. So much still to come down the pipe on the recruiting front here with the Oklahoma Sooners in 2025. Every recruiting segment here on Locked On is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Go to linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free over at LinkedIn. Terms and conditions apply. Oklahoma got off to a great start in the Big 12 tournament with a big win over Kansas. Let's talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more in together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. Like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. New playing pieces to travel the boards with, or hilarious emojis that are perfect for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. There's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench. Go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
Big 12 tournament time in Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma Sooners faced the Kansas Jayhawks on Thursday and got off to a great start, picking up the 10-1 win in run roll fashion in 5 innings. Kansas took a 1-0 lead in the first, but Oklahoma responded in a huge way with 5 runs in the bottom of the first to really take control and give Kelly Maxwell a little bit of run support in the early going, allowing her to settle in and then kind of take over from there.
And a lot of the stars that you wanted to see be stars did that. Alyssa Brito, the early double down the right field line for a couple of runs batted in. Torres brought Tiare home. Then Kinsey Hansen's double. Jada Coleman later on homering to left field. It just looked like Oklahoma, right? And I think for this tournament, that's more than anything what you wanted to see. Oklahoma State did not hold up its end of the bargain. For the second year in a row, they get bounced early in this thing. These Jayhawks that Oklahoma beat Oklahoma State. Remember in that game that got postponed and then resumed the next day. They came rallying back and bounced them. This year it was BYU. So I kind of would have liked to have seen Oklahoma get to face both Oklahoma State and Texas and rip right through those two programs in this tournament just to show that, hey, this is the postseason and don't get things twisted. We're here to come win a fourth national championship in a row. But hey, you can only play the tournament bracket that you're dealt. Oklahoma opened with Kansas. It looked like OU. The 5 runs, the 3 runs, the 2 runs, boom, 10 on the board before you could even blink. Kelly Maxwell, obviously largely very good. So now go follow this up versus BYU tomorrow. And then one more game to capture the championship. And if you look like this, I think a lot of nerves will be put at ease, John.
Well, I think what's noticeable about this team, and it dates back to the Sunday game against Oklahoma State. We talked about it with Alex Sirocco, just a more aggressive approach. You saw it on the Alyssa Brito, attempt home, like basically taking home when the ball was just 2-3 feet away from home plate. I mean, that was a really, really aggressive move, but she went for it. She got there. She had no second guessing about it, and I think that's the key, right? Is being aggressive isn't just about being aggressive, but it's like just playing instinctually. And when this team plays instinctually and they just play with their foot on the gas a little bit, they're really good. 5 extra base hits. They had 10 hits on the day, 4 walks. I mean, and that's kind of what you want to see, right? You want to see some walks, and they got some walks early in the first inning, but then when they got women on base, they got aggressive. Alyssa Brito with a 2-1 count had a rocket down the right field line for a double. And then Kinsey Hansen on an 0-1 pitch came up big. Jada Coleman's home run was on the first pitch of her at bat. So this is kind of what we're wanting to see, right? A little bit of balance. Like, okay, if the pitches aren't where you want them to be, obviously be patient, get your pitch. But when you get people on base, you got to be aggressive. You got to take your hacks. You got to swing the bat. And that's what this team is so good at and been so good at for the last 3+ years, almost 4 years and more, even beyond, just this championship run. They've always been a pretty good offensive team. Got to be aggressive, got to swing the sticks. And they did a really good job of that, keeping the pressure on a Kansas Jayhawks team that has been pretty good, even though they've kind of struggled down the stretch. They had a really nice start to Big 12 play. But another, I think, positive takeaway was Peyton Monticelli's performance. 2 innings pitched, just hit a batter, didn't allow a hit, no walks. I think that's encouraging, especially coupled with Carly Keeney's performance in the Sunday game against Oklahoma State. If you can start kind of getting that pitching staff coming together a little bit more and having depth options, especially in relief, I mean, I think it's going to help set the stage for what could potentially be another special postseason run.
Absolutely. What Keeney did versus Oklahoma State was good. Monticelli here, another nice sign. The more arms you have at your disposal, the better for Oklahoma. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next for Oklahoma in the circle. Deal, May, and Keeney. What's the approach from Oklahoma? I think is an interesting question.
Yeah, I think Patty Gasso and Jennifer Rochik, they could go a lot of different directions here. If I had to guess, part of me thinks it might be Nicole May. You go with the experienced arm. She hasn't, started in a bit. It'd be more than a week since she's had her last start. So I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued by that, even though she doesn't have the best numbers of late, going with that experience. But hey, you only threw Kelly Maxwell 3 innings. So if you decided to go back that direction before the championship game, presumably, that'd be understandable too. But Carly Keeney didn't throw. So maybe you go back to her after she was kind of lights out against Oklahoma State. So an interesting dilemma and a maybe potentially good problem for Patty Gasso to have. keeps everybody a little bit off balance. BYU doesn't really know what to expect going into that 5 p.m. Friday evening game either. Ella Parker, dude, star in the making. 2 RBIs, 2 for 2 day. She's just so good, man. And it's so fascinating to see. We have such a veteran roster, with Jada Coleman, Tiara Jennings, Kinsey Hansen, Elena Torres, Alyssa Brito, and Ella Parker continues to just steal the show seemingly every game.
It's fun what Ella Parker and Cassidy Pickering have both done for OU, and the class coming in. Every time I hear Plank and others talk about it, it's like they're just gushing over the signees that are coming in this next freshman class, and so it's a program that just continues to reload, man. And I'm trying to think who got hurt in this. Nelly Marinas McEnroe, is that right? Who signed with this class and has been hurt. I heard great things about her before. Obviously, she just hasn't been able to play because she got hurt early this year. So, no, it's great for the program that Ella Parker and Cassidy Pickering just look like stars that aren't fazed by anything.
Yeah, Ella Parker just continues to come through in big moments with big opportunities and runners on. Just a natural hitter. So that's going to be fun to watch their progression throughout the postseason, just to see if they can kind of keep up that run. So anything else to add on this, Josh, before we get out of here?
Just go handle your business. Go get 2 wins, and everybody can calm down a little bit going into the NCAA tournament.
My approach, have fun and swing away. That's the thing. Just go have fun. It's like Alex said, just go get back to playing the game you've played all your life and you know how to play. Don't overthink it. Just go have fun and good things will happen, I think. And Oklahoma's showing that over the last couple of games. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts for free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on the KRF Sports app. Follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. You can also read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com and follow the show at Locked On Sooners on social media, wherever you social media. But until next time, he's Josh. I'm John. Boomer Sooner.